Hi, all my viewers, you are listening the Alpha King Love Stories, and I hope you will enjoy it. There is one request to all. Please subscribe my channel so I can share with you more stories. Your one subscribe are really mean to me. Now, please listen. The night was colder than death itself. A cold that seeps into your bones and makes your heartbeat sound hollow. I remember the wind whispering through the trees, carrying a strange scent, fear, blood, and something heartbreakingly pure. I was just a healer, gathering herbs near the old riverbank. The woods were a dangerous place after dark, especially with the rumors of a cursed Alpha King and his missing heirs. But the forest called to me. It always had. That night, it called with tiny, broken cries. It started as a faint whimper, small, desperate, then another. I thought it was a wounded animal at first. My lantern trembled in my hand as I pushed through the fog-wrapped undergrowth, following the sound deeper than I should have gone. The border stones of the Alpha's territory stood not far away, glowing faintly in the moonlight. I was trespassing. I knew the punishment. But the cries, they were so small. I found them beneath the roots of an ancient willow. Two wolf pups, their fur matted with mud and frost, shivering against each other. Their eyes, even in the darkness, glowed with a faint, unmistakable gold. Alpha blood, royal blood. My heart stopped. What were royal pups doing here, alone in the freezing dark? Then I saw the trail, a smudge of darkness leading away from them, deeper into the shadows. I took a few steps, my stomach twisting. The metallic scent of blood filled the air, and there, tangled in a thorn bush, was a torn piece of fabric, pure white silk, soaked in crimson. Embroidered at the edge was a crest I recognized from the tales, a crescent moon cradling a wolf's head, the Luna's crest. My hands went numb. This wasn't an accident. This was an abandonment. The Luna, the queen of these woods, had left her own children to die. The pups whimpered again, a sound that tore through my soul. One tried to crawl toward me, its tiny paw bleeding. The other just pressed its face into its sibling's fur, crying softly. All my fear of the Alpha, of the law, of the border, vanished. "Oh, you poor, precious things," I whispered, my voice cracking. I dropped to my knees and scooped them up in my cloak. They were so light, so fragile. I could feel their hearts fluttering like trapped birds against my skin. "Don't worry, I've got you. I've got you now." The forest seemed to sigh around me, a warning sigh. I could feel unseen eyes watching from the darkness. These woods belonged to him, Kaelen, the Alpha King, a man spoken of in whispers, a ruler carved from wrath and winter. To trespass here with his bloodline in my hands was a death sentence. But I didn't care. All I could think about was the coldness of their little bodies, the trust in their golden eyes as they curled into my warmth. No creature, royal or not, deserved to die alone and afraid. By the time I reached my small cabin, the moon was high and silver. I stoked the fire, wrapped the pups in my softest blankets, and warmed some goat milk. They drank weakly, then collapsed into a deep, exhausted sleep. I sat by the hearth, the blood-stained silk clutched in my hand, feeling the weight of a secret too dangerous to keep. Days blurred into a fragile routine. I named them Soul and Umbra, Sun and Shadow, names for survivors. They grew stronger, following me with tiny padding steps as I tended my garden. Their golden eyes watched my every move, and a strange, warm pull began to grow in my chest when I was near them, a feeling like fate itself was knitting a thread between our hearts. Then, 1 week later, the earth trembled. It began as a deep vibration in the floorboards. The copper pot on my stove rattled. Soul and Umbra whimpered, hiding behind my skirts. A howl split the night, long, furious, echoing through the valley like a clap of thunder. It was a sound of pure power and pure rage. He was here. I stepped outside, my breath frosting in the air, and there he stood, at the very edge of the tree line, the Alpha King, Kaelen. He was taller than any man had a right to be, his presence swallowing the moonlight. His hair was the color of shadow, his eyes burning with a gold fire that mirrored the pup's own. He wore no crown, but he didn't need one. Authority radiated from him like a heat from a forge, pressing down on the clearing, on me. The air crackled, thick with the scent of pine and storm. He didn't speak. He just looked at me, then at the cabin door behind which his children slept. His gaze was a physical weight. You. His voice was a low growl that vibrated in my bones. You hold my blood in your hands. I froze, every instinct screaming to run, to bow, to beg. He took one step forward, and the ground seemed to dip beneath his boot. You crossed my border. You touched what is mine. Do you have a death wish? Human? I found my voice, though it shook. I saved them. They were left to die in the cold. Your Luna... Do not speak her name. The command was a whip crack, filled with a grief so profound it stole my breath. His eyes flicked to the cabin, and for a fleeting second the fury softened into something agonizing. Then it hardened again, sharper than before. You have committed a crime punishable by extinction. Give me one reason why I should not end you where you stand. The fear was a cold stone in my throat, but I thought of Sol's playful nip, of Umbra's soft sigh when he slept. I straightened my shoulders and met his terrifying gaze and spoke the truth that had guided my hands. If saving 2 innocent lives is a crime, then your law is worthless. Kill me if you must. I will not regret what I did. Something shifted in his eyes, a spark of surprise, quickly buried. He closed the distance between us until his shadow fell over me, until I could see the flecks of silver in his golden irises. His voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than his roar. You should not have done that. Now, little healer, you are tangled in a curse you do not understand. A shiver traced my spine. He turned away, his cloak swirling. Keep them safe. Keep them hidden. I will return, and when I do, I will decide what is to be done with you. Then he was gone, melting into the forest as if he were made of the same darkness. I stood there, trembling, the cold finally seeping into my veins. I had saved the pups, and in doing so, I had caught the eye of the storm. That night, I didn't sleep. The forest was too quiet. The world felt tilted on its axis. I held Sol and Umbra close, their warm bodies a comfort against the unknown. The thread in my chest hummed, a taut connection stretching into the woods where he had vanished. The Alpha King was coming back, not just for his heirs. He was coming back for me, and I had no idea what fate awaited any of us. The dawn after Kaelen's visit was pale and tense. The birdsong was hesitant, the light thin. Sol and Umbra slept curled together by the hearth, their dreams peaceful, unaware of the shift in our world. I moved through my morning chores like a ghost, my ears straining for any sound beyond the clearing. He said he would return, to decide my fate. The words circled in my mind like crows. I was checking the poultice on Sol's healed paw when a different scent arrived on the wind. Leather, steel, and cold riverstone. Not Kaelen. I stood quickly, my hand finding the familiar handle of my herb knife. A man appeared at the edge of the clearing. He moved with a predator's grace, cloaked in gray, his face etched with stern lines and old scars. He was a beta. I could feel the subordinate power rolling off him. He stopped, his sharp eyes taking in the cabin, the smoke from the chimney, me. I opened the door before he could knock. He glanced at the knife in my hand, and a flicker of something like respect crossed his grim face. "You are braver than you look," he stated. "Or more foolish," I replied, not lowering the blade. "What do you want?" "I am Elias, the king's beta. I have come to see the children, and to see the woman who defies death so casually. My defiance had a cause. They were the cause." He nodded once, a sharp dip of his chin. "May I enter?" Every instinct said no, but the memory of Kaelen's words, "They will see you," echoed. Denying his second in command felt like a mistake. I stepped aside. Elias entered, his presence making my small home feel smaller. His gaze went immediately to the pups. He knelt by the hearth, his hard expression softening a fraction as Umbra sniffed his extended fingers, then licked them. Soul watched with cautious curiosity. "They are strong," he murmured. "You have cared for them well. They are wrapped in your scent as much as their own." "It was that or let them perish," I said, my voice tight. "A choice your Luna did not make." His head snapped up, eyes flashing a warning. "Careful, that title still holds power, and it is a vengeful power. Then it should have been used to protect, not destroy." I shot back, surprising myself. We held each other's gaze, a silent battle of wills. His eyes then drifted to my small table, where the white silk lay, neatly folded, the dark stain of blood still visible against the crest. His face went stony. "Where did you find that?" "By the old willow, near where I found them." He reached out, touching the fabric only with the tips of his fingers, as if it were poisoned. "This crest," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "on a traitor's garment, it is a death warrant, for her, and for anyone who stands in the way of justice." The air grew cold. "Is he going to kill her?" Elias didn't answer. Instead, he stiffened, his head tilting. "He approaches. You will feel it." And I did. It started as a tremor in the floorboards, a pressure building in the air. The firelight bent toward the door. The very atmosphere grew heavy, charged, waiting. The door opened without a hand touching it. Kaelen filled the doorway. Mist clung to his hair, and a new thin scar gleamed on his throat. His eyes were not just gold, they were molten, ancient, piercing the dim room. The Alpha King was here, and the world bent around him. He didn't look at me, he went straight to the pups. Soul made a soft chirping noise, and Umbra scrambled forward. Kaelen knelt, and the terrifying aura around him gentled, folding inward. A low, grumbling sound came from his chest, not a growl, but a vow. "Forgive me," he whispered, so raw I hardly heard it. "Forgive me for entrusting your light to darkness." My throat tightened. This was not the monstrous king of legend. This was a father shattered by betrayal. He set them down gently, then finally turned his gaze to me. The full force of his attention was like standing in a hurricane. He inhaled deeply, his brow furrowing slightly. "You smell like safety," he said, the words seeming to surprise him as much as me. "I smell like hearth smoke and fear," I corrected, my voice unsteady. "Safety is just a story I tell them at night." His eyes flicked to Elias. "Leave us." Without a word, Elias bowed and departed, closing the door softly behind him. We were alone. The pull in my chest tightened, a live wire humming between our hearts. "You broke every law to keep them alive," Kaelen stated, taking a step closer. The room shrank further. "You should be kneeling." "I don't kneel to those who would punish compassion," I said, holding my ground. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Still defiant, he looked around the cabin, at the humble signs of life and care. "I have a curse, Lyria. It was woven into my soul the night I took the throne. It takes what I hold dear. It twists love into loss. I should stay far away from anything, anyone I wish to protect." The word wish hung in the air between us, delicate and perilous. "I never asked for your protection," I whispered. "Neither did they," he said, glancing at the pups. "And yet you gave yours freely." He took another step. Tell me your name. I know it already. You have tasted it on the wind. I need it to hear from your lips. Alara, I said. My name is Alara. He repeated it softly, and something in his expression shifted, a door opening behind his eyes. Alara, you have placed a debt upon me that cannot be paid in gold or land, so I will repay it in law. His voice grew formal, the king speaking now. From this moment, you are under my protection. No claw, no court, no rumor may touch you. The only one who will decide your fate is me. It should have felt like a prison sentence. Instead, it felt like a shield being placed around me. And if your decision goes against me, then you will have made me delay it, he said, a faint, real smile touching his eyes for a heartbeat. He turned to leave, then paused at the threshold. I will send guards. The scent of royal blood, abandoned, will attract worse than rogues. It will attract those who sold their wolves for power. If any come, you do not open this door. I understand. And if I come, he added, his voice dropping to a whisper that wound around my heart, you will. He left, and the room rushed with air, the pressure vanishing. I sank into a chair, my legs weak. Outside, I heard the sounds of organization, hooves, low commands. The kingdom was moving. But a new sound crept in soon after, a scrabbling at the tree line, a scent like old iron and rotten meat. Shadows moved where shadows shouldn't be. A voice, oily and false, called from beyond my door. Healer, we heard you've taken in strays. We're here to help. I looked at the iron poker by the hearth. I looked at Sol and Umbera, their eyes wide. I picked up the poker. Its weight was solid, real. Come then, I whispered to the closed door, my fear hardening into resolve. Let me decide what to do with you. And from somewhere impossibly far, yet deep inside my soul, a howl rolled across the land, a promise of wrath, an echo of protection. The king was not here, but his vow was, and it was already working. The world narrowed to the rough wood of the door and the painful thud of my own heart. The iron poker felt slick in my sweaty palm. On the other side, silence followed my challenge. A terrible, waiting silence. Then a low chuckle that held no warmth, only cruelty. Brave words for a lone human, the voice slithered back. But we are not here for words. The first blow against the door was not a knock. It was a battering ram of force. Wood screamed, splinters flying inward like tiny daggers. I stumbled back, clutching the poker. Sol and Umbera scrambled, whimpering toward the hidden crawlspace in the floor. I shoved them gently toward it, my eyes never leaving the shattering door. Go, now, not a sound. Their little bodies disappeared into the darkness below, just as the door gave way with a final deafening crack. 3 figures filled the shattered doorway, backlit by the moon. Not wolves in form, but men whose eyes glinted with a feral silver light. Rogues, deserters. Their armor was mismatched, their faces scarred where pack marks had been burned away. The leader had a gash for a smile, his teeth too sharp. Well, well, he drawled, stepping over the wreckage. The Alpha's little pet. We heard you've been keeping treasures that don't belong to you. My back hit the table. They are children. They belong to safety. That is all. Safety, another rogue spat. There is no safety in this kingdom anymore. Only power. And their blood is power. His gaze swept the room, hunting. Where are they? My fingers tightened on the poker. Gone. The leader sighed, a mockery of disappointment. A shame, but you'll do as a message. He lunged. Time seemed to slow. I swung the poker. It connected with his shoulder with a sickening thud. He grunted, twisting away, but the second was already on me, grabbing my arm, wrenching. White-hot pain pain shot from my wrist. The poker clattered to the floor. I was pinned, the scent of unwashed fur and blood choking me. "Search the house," the leader snarled, rubbing his shoulder. "Tear it apart." The third rogue began overturning furniture, his claws shredding my blankets, smashing my pots. My heart broke with every crash. This was my home, my sanctuary, and they were defiling it. From the crawl space, a tiny, terrified whine escaped. The leader's head snapped toward the sound. A cruel smile spread across his face. Ah, not so gone after all. "No!" I screamed, fighting against the iron grip holding me. "Please, they're just pups." Exactly, just pups, just heirs, just the key to bringing a broken king to his knees. He nodded to the rogue tearing apart the room. The man knelt, his claws digging into the floorboards, preparing to pry them up. Despair, cold and absolute, flooded me. I had failed. I had failed them. I closed my eyes, a prayer for mercy on my lips. Then the world erupted. It was not a sound first, but a feeling, a pressure so immense it felt like the sky was falling. The air itself turned to ice, then to fire. The rogue holding me gasped, his grip loosening. The one at the crawl space froze, a low growl of terror building in his throat. Kaelen did not come through the door. He was the door. One moment the shattered frame was empty, the next he filled it, a monument of wrath carved from moonlight and shadow. His eyes were not gold, they were white-hot suns, blazing with a fury that scorched the air. He did not roar. The silence that poured from him was louder than any sound. The leader had just enough time to widen his eyes before Kaelen moved. It was a blur of darkness and lethal grace. A hand now tipped with obsidian claws shot out. There was a wet, final crack. The leader's body crumpled, lifeless, to the floor. The other two rogues turned to flee. They did not make a step. Kaelen was a storm of retribution. One slash, a choked cry, and the second rogue fell. The third, scrambling toward the window, was plucked from the ground as if he were a doll. Kaelen held him aloft, his expression of cold, divine judgment. "You touched what is under my protection. You dared." The rogue's plea was a gurgle. Kaelen silenced it forever. Then it was over. The silence returned, thick and heavy, broken only by the crackle of the hearth and my ragged, sobbing breaths. 3 bodies lay on my floor. Kaelen stood amidst them, his chest heaving, his claws dripping. The terrifying aura around him pulsed, slowly receding like a tide. He turned. His burning eyes found me. I flinched, still pressed against the table, my injured wrist cradled to my chest. The fury in his gaze did not soften, but it shifted. It turned inward, mingling with something that looked like horror. "You are hurt." His voice was rough, stripped of his godlike rage. They were going to take them," I stammered, tears finally spilling over. "They knew where to look." He crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't touch me, but his presence was a wall between me and the nightmare behind him. His eyes scanned my face, my wrist, the fear that trembled through my body. "You stood against them, for my children." "I couldn't let them." A sob cut off my words. He did something then that shattered the last of my composure. He knelt before me. The Alpha King, the legend of wrath, knelt amidst the wreckage of my home and the bodies of his enemies. He reached out, his hand hovering near my injured wrist. His claws had retracted. His fingers, though scarred, looked almost human. "May I?" he asked, his voice so low it was almost a vibration. I nodded, unable to speak. His touch was startlingly gentle. He examined the swelling, his brow furrowed. "It is not broken, badly bruised." He looked up, his gaze capturing mine. "You are shaking." "They tried to kill me," I whispered. "And you fought them," he said, not as praise, but as a solemn fact. "You could have run. You could have given them up." "Never." The word was a rock in the river of my fear. Something in his face fractured, the last remnants of the Storm King vanished, leaving behind a man who looked unimaginably weary and unbearably grateful. "You keep defying every expectation," he murmured. "You look at death and you plant a garden in its path." He rose, his movement fluid. He went to the crawl space and lifted the hidden door. 2 pairs of golden eyes peered out, wide with fear. At the sight of him, the fear melted into relief. Sol and Umbera tumbled out, scrambling over the broken wood to press against his legs, whining softly. He scooped them up, holding them close, murmuring words in a language older than the forest. Watching him, the fierce, gentle giant cradling his children, the last of my terror bled away, replaced by a profound, aching understanding. This was the truth of him. The monster was the armor. This was the man beneath. He looked at me over the tops of their heads. "They cannot stay here. This place is marked. It is not safe." "Where will they go?" I asked, a new fear clutching me, the thought of them leaving, of this cabin being empty of their warmth. "With me," he said, "to the stronghold, where stone walls and 1,000 loyal claws can guard them." He paused, his gaze piercing. "You will come too." It was not a question, it was a decree, but it was also an offer, a sanctuary. My home. "Your home is ash and memory if you stay," he said, not unkindly. "The Luna's allies now know of you. You are a symbol, the human who saved the heirs. To some, you are a hero. To her, you are the living proof of her failure. She will not stop until that proof is erased." The truth of his words settled in my bones, cold and heavy. I looked around at my shattered door, my overturned life. The herbs scattered on the floor, the broken chair my father had carved. This was all I had, and it was gone. "I have nothing," I whispered, the weight of it finally crashing down. "You have your life," Kaelen said, his voice softening. "You have your courage, and you have—" He glanced at the pups, now nibbling on his cloak ties. "You have them, Ilara. They will not forget you, ever." He stood, placing Sol and Umbera carefully in a sling he fashioned from a torn blanket. He moved through the ruin of my cabin with a purposeful grace, gathering a few of my untouched things, my mother's woven shawl, my pouch of healing herbs, the unbroken water flask. He handed them to me. "Bring only what your heart cannot leave behind." I took the small bundle, my fingers numb. This was it, the end of one life, the terrifying beginning of another. I followed him to the shattered doorway, stepping over the threshold from the known into the absolute unknown. He paused, looking back at the cabin one last time, then at the forest path leading north, to his kingdom. "The road is long, and the shadows are deep, but I will be your shadow now, and no darkness will touch you while I draw breath." We stepped into the night. The forest, which had always been my refuge, now felt like a kingdom of watching eyes. Every rustle was a threat, every snap of a twig a potential enemy. Kaelen walked ahead, a silent, protective force, the pups a quiet weight against his chest. I walked behind, my bundle in my arms, my heart a turmoil of grief and dread. We walked for hours, the moon our only guide. Just as the first hint of gray touched the eastern sky, Kaelen stopped. We were on a high ridge overlooking a vast, sleeping valley. In the distance, silhouetted against the paling stars, was a jagged, monstrous shape, a fortress of black stone built into the very bones of the mountain. Twisted towers clawed at the sky. It looked less like a palace and more like a crown of thorns. "The stronghold of thorns," Kaelen said, his voice devoid of affection. "My ancestral home. It has seen more betrayal than celebration. It looks cursed," he finished for me, a bitter edge to his tone. "It is. It reflects the heart of the king, or it did." He looked down at the sleeping pups. "Perhaps it is time for a new reflection." As we began the descent into the valley, a new sound reached us on the wind, not the howl of wolves, but the distant chilling blare of a war horn. It came from the opposite direction, from the deep southern woods where the Silver Fang clan, the Luna's birth clan, held sway. Kaelen went utterly still. The peaceful father vanished, and the Alpha King solidified in his place, his expression granite. She knows, he said, the words cold as glacier ice. She knows they live, and she is calling her banners. He turned to me, and in his eyes I saw the storm gathering anew. The war for their future begins at dawn, Ilara. Welcome to the heart of the curse. The stronghold of thorns did not welcome us, it swallowed us. The air within its towering black gates was colder than the forest night, stale with the scent of old stone and older blood. The courtyard was a cavern of shadows, the dawnlight struggling to pierce the high, narrow windows. Wolves in gray livery watched us enter, their eyes wary, their postures tense. They bowed as Kaelen passed, but their gazes lingered on me, a human trailing behind their king like a lost shadow. A tall, severe-looking she-wolf with silver-streaked hair stepped forward. Her name, I learned, was Anya, the Castellane. Her eyes, the color of flint, swept over me with dismissive efficiency before settling on Kaelen. "Majesty, your chambers are prepared. The heirs—" Her voice trailed off as she saw the bundled pups against his chest. "They remain with me," Kaelen stated, his tone brooking no argument. "And this is Ilara. She is under my personal protection. She is to have chambers near mine, and she is to be treated with the respect owed to one who has saved your future king and queen." Anya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she bowed. "As you command." She flicked her gaze back to me. "Follow, girl." I was led away from Kaelen, down winding, torch-lit corridors that felt like the arteries of some great stone beast. The pups whined softly as we parted, reaching little paws toward me. My heart ached. The chambers I was given were spacious but cold, high in a tower overlooking the barren inner ward. They were devoid of personal touch, a cell for a guest who was also a prisoner of circumstance. Hours dragged by. Servants came bringing food, water, fresh clothing that was too fine, too foreign. They spoke little, their eyes full of silent curiosity and suspicion. I felt like a peculiar insect under glass. The solitude was worse than the danger in the forest. Here, the threat was invisible, woven into the very tapestries on the walls. As dusk fell, a soft knock sounded. It was Elias, the beta. His stern face was unreadable. "The king requests your presence in the solar," he said. I followed him through the labyrinth, my nerves fraying. The solar was a circular room at the top of the main keep, its arched windows open to the violet twilight. Kaelen stood by one, his back to me, silhouetted against the dying light. The pups were asleep on a thick fur rug by a low burning fire. He turned as I entered. He had changed to simpler, dark clothes, but no clothing could dim the aura of power he carried. He looked less like the vengeful god of last night and more like a weary ruler, burdened by crowns. "Ilara, sit, please." I perched on the edge of a carved chair. He did not sit. He paced, a restless energy coming off him in waves. "Anya tells me the southern horns did not cease until midday. The Silver Fang clan is mobilizing. The Luna, Seraphina, is with them. She is rallying them with tales of my madness, of a curse that makes me unfit to rule, that led me to drive her away." "That's a lie!" I burst out, then flushed at my own vehemence. He gave a humorless smile. "It is, but it is a compelling one. Many in the wider pack are unsure. They saw a queen flee and a king become increasingly isolated, his eyes burning with a cursed light. They did not see the abandoned pups. My word against hers, it is a battle fought in shadows." "What will you do?" "I must show them the truth," he said, stopping his pace to look at me. "But truth is a fragile thing in times of war. It needs protectors." He knelt before the fire, gently stroking Umbera's back. "They are the truth. Their survival is the truth. And you are the witness." He rose and faced me fully. "The Council of Alphas convenes in 3 days' time. Representatives from every major pack in the realm will be here. Seraphina will come under a banner of parley. She will spin her web of lies. I will present my heirs. But a king presenting his children can be seen as a political move. I need a voice they cannot dismiss, a voice from outside the pack, with no stake in our power struggles, who speaks only of what she saw. Understanding dawned, cold and terrifying. Me? You want me to speak to the council? Yes, to tell them what you found, the pups, the cold, the bloodied crest, to tell them of the rogues who came to steal them away. Your testimony could shatter her lies. The thought of standing before a room full of powerful, ancient werewolves, of being the focal point of a kingdom's destiny, made my stomach turn to water. They will not listen to a human. They will say I'm your pawn, coached by you. Some will, he admitted, but your story has the ring of truth that cannot be fabricated. The fear in your eyes when you speak of that night, that is real. They will sense it. Wolves know scent, but they also know heart. He took a step closer. Ilara, I do not ask this lightly. I am asking you to step into the heart of the storm. Seraphina will see you as her greatest threat. Her allies will try to discredit you, intimidate you, perhaps worse. My protection will be a shield, but no shield is impenetrable. I looked at Sol and Umbera, sleeping so peacefully, so unaware of the titanic forces clashing over their future. I thought of the feel of their cold, small bodies in my arms that first night. I thought of the trust in their golden eyes. I will do it, I heard myself say, the words steady despite the tremor in my hands. Relief, profound and stark, washed over his features. For a moment, the weight on his shoulders seemed to lighten. Thank you. The words were simple, but they carried the gravity of a vow. A comfortable silence settled, broken only by the fire's crackle. He moved to a side table and poured 2 cups of a fragrant, steaming liquid from a pot. Mint and moonflower, he said, handing one to me. I took it, our fingers brushing. A spark, warm and electric, jumped between us. We both stilled, the air suddenly thick with unspoken things. He looked at me, his golden eyes deep and searching in the firelight. Ilara, this life I am dragging you into, it is one of constant danger, of politics that cut deeper than claws. You could have had a quiet life in your forest. I took a sip of the tea, letting its warmth steady me. Quiet lives are overrated, and my forest wasn't so quiet after all. I met his gaze. I chose to save them. That was the first choice. This is the second. I will see it through. He studied my face as if memorizing it. You have a strength that humbles mountains, he said softly. It makes a king feel... He didn't finish. A shout echoed from the courtyard below, followed by the clash of steel. Kaelen was at the window in an instant, his body rigid. Elias, he barked. The beta appeared at the door instantly. Sire, intruders, in the lower vaults. They bypassed the outer guards. Kaelen's face was a mask of cold fury. They seek the stone of ancestors. He turned to me, all softness gone. Stay here, with them. Bolt the door after me. Do not open it for anyone but me or Elias. Do you understand? I nodded, fear a cold knot in my stomach. He and Elias vanished, moving with preternatural speed. I rushed to the door, sliding the heavy iron bolt home. My heart hammered against my ribs. I went to the pups, gathering them into my arms, their warm, sleepy weight a comfort. We sat by the fire, and I waited. The sounds of distant combat filtered up, snarls, shouts, the chilling ring of swords. Then, closer, a scrabbling at the solar's outer wall, a shadow blotting out the moonlight at the window. I clutched the pups closer, backing toward the fireplace, my hand closing around the iron poker there. The window, high and arched, was not made to open, but the figure outside seemed to melt through the stone itself, a wraith of shifting shadow and silver light. It coalesced into the form of a woman, tall and breathtakingly beautiful, with hair like spun moonlight and eyes of glacial blue. She wore armor of polished silver, and at her throat gleamed a pendant, a broken crescent moon. Seraphina, the Luna. She landed silently on the solar floor, her gaze sweeping the room before landing on me and the pups in my arms. A smile, beautiful and venomous, touched her lips. "So," she breathed, her voice like frost on glass, "you are the little human who thinks she can steal a kingdom?" Her eyes fell on Sol and Umbera, and for a fleeting second a terrible, twisted longing flickered there. "My children, you have been keeping them cozy." "They are not yours," I said, my voice trembling but clear. "You gave up that right." Her smile vanished. "I gave up nothing. I saved them from him, from his curse. I left them where they would be found by kind, simple folk, not in this den of monsters." She took a step forward. "Give them to me. I will take them far from here, to a place of light and safety." "Liar," I spat, the word giving me courage. "You left them to die in the cold. I felt their fear. I saw the blood on your crest. You are no mother. You are a murderer." Rage contorted her beautiful face. Silver light, cold and blinding, began to gather at her fingertips. She raised her hand. The cold in the room intensified, the fire guttering. I held the pups tight, turning my body to shield them, bracing for the blast. It never came. A roar of pure, undiluted fury shook the very stones. Kaelen exploded through the solar door, the solid oak splintering like kindling around him. His eyes were incandescent with gold fire, his claws extended, his fangs bared. He placed himself between Seraphina and me, a wall of bristling, protective rage. "Seraphina, you will not touch them." She flinched but held her ground, her silver power flaring. "You see? This is the curse, Kaelen. This beast you become. Is this what you want for our children?" "They are not our children," he thundered, the sound shaking dust from the rafters. "They are mine. You severed any claim to them the moment you chose your own ambition over their beating hearts. Your conspiracy with the Silver Fang ends now. The vault intruders are dead. Your plot to steal the stone of ancestors to legitimize your coup has failed." Her face paled. The silver light flickered. She had been outplayed. "Leave this stronghold," Kaelen commanded, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "Leave my lands. The council will decide your fate. But if you ever come near my children or the one who protects them again, I will tear the moon from the sky before I let you harm them." For a long moment, they stood locked in a silent battle of wills, gold light warring with silver. Finally, with a hiss of fury, Seraphina's form dissolved back into shadow and mist, streaming out through the window from whence she came. The tension shattered. Kaelen's shoulders slumped, the fiery aura dimming. He turned to me, his eyes scanning me, the pups for injury. "Are you unharmed?" I could only nod, my body shaking with delayed terror. He crossed the room in 2 strides, and without thinking, pulled me and the pups into the circle of his arms. It was not an embrace of passion, but one of desperate shared survival. I felt the rapid, powerful beat of his heart against my cheek, felt the tremor in his own limbs. "You will not stop," he murmured into my hair, his voice rough. "The council is our only chance now." In the safety of that unexpected shelter, with the pups between us, I understood the true depth of the curse. It was not just a magical blight. It was the poison of betrayal, the isolation of power, the endless war for love in a world that valued only strength. and I, a simple healer, was now standing at its very center, holding two little lights against the howling dark. The battle for the throne had just begun, and I was no longer just a witness. I was a cornerstone. The 3 days before the council were a steady, intense anticipation. The stronghold of thorns, which had felt like a tomb, now buzzed with a feverish energy. Wolves from distant packs arrived daily, imposing alphas with retinues of hardened warriors, sleek emissaries with watchful eyes, healers adorned with feathers and bones. The air thickened with 100 different scents: pine from the northern forests, salt from the coastal clans, the dry sage of the western plains. It was a symphony of power, and I was a single dissonant human note. Kaelen was rarely seen. He was immersed in strategy sessions with Elias and his most trusted commanders. When he did appear, it was like watching a storm contained in human skin, controlled, focused, but with lightning in his eyes. He checked on the pups and me daily, his visits brief but intense. He would ask if I needed anything, if I felt safe, his gaze always lingering as if memorizing the fact of our well-being. Anya, the castellan, had appointed a young she-wolf named Liana as my attendant. Liana was kind, with eyes the color of summer moss, and seemed genuinely in awe of the pups. She helped me navigate the labyrinthine keep, found me clothes that were less restrictive, and taught me the basic customs of werewolf etiquette. "Do not look an alpha directly in the eyes for too long unless challenged," she whispered. "Do not interrupt. And for the moon's sake, do not show fear. They can smell it like blood on the wind." I practiced my testimony in the cold silence of my tower room. I spoke to the stone walls, describing the cold night, the whimpers, the feel of the bloody silk. I tried to strip my voice of emotion, to present only stark, unbearable facts. But every time, my voice broke on the memory of their tiny, trusting weight. The night before the council, I couldn't sleep. I wrapped myself in my mother's shawl and stood at the window watching the twin moons, one silver, one a faint blue, cast their cold light over the assembled tents and banners in the valley below. It looked like a field of strange, deadly flowers. A soft knock came to my chamber door. It was Kaelen. He looked exhausted, shadows like bruises under his eyes, but he carried a small wooden box. "Alara, may I enter?" I nodded, stepping back. He placed the box on a table and opened it. Inside, on a bed of dark velvet, lay a necklace. It was a simple thing, a smooth gray stone shot through with a single vein of luminous gold, hung on a leather cord. It pulsed with a gentle, warm energy. "It's a sentinel stone," he explained, his voice quiet in the sleeping keep. "Very old. It does not grant power or protection from blades, but it steadies the heart. It helps the wearer speak their truth, clearly and without faltering, even when faced with overwhelming fear." He lifted it from the box. "I would have you wear it tomorrow." "It's beautiful," I whispered, "but such a treasure." "It is a tool for a vital task," he said, cutting off my protest. "Your truth is our strongest weapon. This will help you wield it." He stepped closer. "May I?" I turned, lifting my hair. His fingers were surprisingly deft as he fastened the cord at my nape. The stone settled cool against my skin, then warmed, a calming pulse that seemed to sync with my heartbeat. The frantic, skittering fear in my chest dulled to a manageable hum. "Thank you," I said, turning back to face him. He didn't step back. We stood very close in the moonlit room. The weight of the coming day hung between us, but in this moment, it was just two people standing against a tide. "You once asked me about my curse," he said, his gaze fixed on the stone resting against my collarbone. "It was not just that it took what I loved. It was a silencing. It wrapped my true self in layers of rage and isolation, so that even when I spoke, no one heard me. They heard the curse. They heard the king. They heard the beast. He finally looked up, meeting my eyes. Tomorrow you must speak for me, not for the king, but for the father who was betrayed, for the man who would burn the world to keep those pups safe. Can you do that? I saw it then, not just the monarch, but the lonely soul beneath the crown. I will speak for the man who knelt in the ruins of my home to check my wrist, I said softly. I will speak for the one whose first thought is always their safety. They will hear him, I promise. Something fragile and fierce flashed in his golden eyes. He raised a hand as if to touch my face, then curled it into a fist, lowering it. The moment stretched, charged with everything unsaid. I should let you rest, he murmured, his voice rough. As he turned to leave, I found my voice. Kaelen, will she be there tomorrow? Seraphina? His back stiffened. Yes, she will come under the banner of Parley, flanked by her silver fang kin. She will be beautiful, eloquent, and she will lie with every breath. He glanced over his shoulder. Remember the cold, Elara. Remember the silence under the willow. That is the truth. Hold on to it. He left, and the room felt emptier, colder, despite the warm stone against my skin. The council was held in the Hall of Echoes, a vast circular chamber deep in the heart of the mountain. Stone benches rose in tiers around a central dais carved from a single piece of black rock that resembled a frozen wave. The air was cold and still, smelling of damp stone and old magic. High above, narrow shafts let in spears of dusty light, illuminating the swirling motes in the air. I entered with Liana, hidden within a group of Kaelen's loyalists. My heart hammered, but the sentinel stone pulsed gently, a steady anchor. I took my assigned seat on the lower benches, a place for witnesses. From here I had a clear view of the dais. The hall filled with a low, rolling thunder of voices and the rustle of fur and leather. Dozens of alphas took their seats, their auras a palpable pressure in the room. I saw mountainous wolves from the glacier packs, their fur white and eyes pale blue, sleek, dangerous-looking ones from the coastal clans, smelling of brine, and the haughty, silver-pelted members of the Silver Fang contingent, their eyes cold as they took their seats opposite Kaelen's supporters. A horn silenced the room. Kaelen entered from a high archway. He wore no ceremonial armor, only dark, simple clothes, but he wore his authority like a cloak. He took his seat on the ancient Alpha's throne on the dais, carved from a wolf's skull of monumental size. Elias stood rigid at his right hand. The air hummed with tension. Another horn. Seraphina entered. She was a vision. She wore a gown of iridescent white that seemed woven from moonlight itself, her silver hair cascading freely. She moved with a grace that was both ethereal and commanding, a sad, resigned smile on her perfect lips. She took a seat on the dais opposite Kaelen, a place reserved for a Luna. The affront was deliberate. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An ancient wolf, so old his pelt was gray and his back bent, stood as moderator. His voice was a dry rustle. This council is convened to hear grievances regarding the line of succession and the rule of the Blackthorn Peak Pack. Alpha Kaelen, you may present your claim. Kaelen stood. He did not shout. His voice, calm and deep, carried to every corner of the silent hall. My claim is the blood in my veins and the heirs of that blood who were stolen from me and left to die. My grievance is against Seraphina of the Silver Fang, who swore a Luna's oath to protect and then committed the ultimate betrayal. Seraphina rose, a single tear traced a path down her cheek. It was a masterpiece of performance. I hear my king's pain, she said, her voice a melody of sorrow. The curse that befell him, it changed him. It brought a darkness into our home, a rage that terrified me for my own life, for the lives of our unborn children. I did not abandon them. I fled to save them. I left them in a secret grove under the protection of the Moon Mother, knowing the kindly folk of the borderlands would find them and give them the peaceful life their father's curse could not. The lie was so brazen, so perfectly crafted, that a wave of sympathetic murmurs came from the unaligned packs. She played the victim, the protective mother forced into a terrible choice. Kaelen's jaw was clenched so tight I thought the bone would crack. "Lies," he stated, the word flat and final. "I call a witness to the truth." All eyes turned as Elias gestured to me. A pathway cleared. The weight of 100 predatory gazes settled on me. My legs felt like water, but the stone at my throat pulsed, a warm reminder. I stood and walked to the open space before the dais. I felt Kaelen's gaze like a physical support. I avoided looking at Seraphina, but I could feel her icy hatred from across the stone. "State your name and what you are," the moderator intoned. "My name is Alara. I am a human healer who lives near the old riverbank by the border stones of the Blackthorn Peak territory." My voice sounded small, but it did not shake. "Tell the council what you witnessed." I took a breath. I did not speak to the room. I pictured that night, and I spoke to the memory. The night was colder than any I remember. The wind carried the scent of fear and blood. I heard cries, tiny, broken cries. I followed them to the ancient willow. I described the scene, the matted fur, the shivering, the trail of blood. I pulled the square of white silk from my sleeve, the rusty stain and the crest plain for all to see. A gasp went up. I found this, tangled in thorns, where she had fled. The pups were half frozen. They were not placed gently in a sacred grove. They were discarded like refuse, left to the mercy of the frost and any predator that passed by. Seraphina's mask slipped. "You are a human, a simpleton easily swayed by a powerful alpha's stories. He found you and filled your head with lies to..." Silence. The moderator's voice cracked like a whip. "The witness speaks." I continued, my voice gaining strength, fueled by the memory of my own anger that night. I took them home. I warmed them, fed them, named them Soul and Umbra. Days later, rogues came. They smashed my door. They said they were sent to retrieve the treasures. They knew where to look. They tried to take them by force. I looked up, finally meeting the eyes of the council. I am just a human. I have no stake in your politics, no love for your wars, but I know abandonment when I see it. I know the coldness of a heart that can leave its children to die. That is not the act of a mother saving her young. It is the act of a traitor covering her tracks. The silence in the Hall of Echoes was absolute. You could have heard a snowflake land. Then Seraphina laughed. It was a light, chilling sound, a compelling story. And what of the curse? Did he tell you of that? The golden fire in his eyes that is not natural, the rage that consumes him. He is not fit to rule, and he is not fit to raise children. I demand the council place the heirs in the custody of the Silver Fang clan, where they will be raised safely, away from his instability. It was her masterstroke. Shift the focus from her crime to his condition. Kaelen rose slowly. The air around him grew heavy. The gold light began to bleed into his eyes. He was fighting it. I could see the strain in his neck. But the accusation, the threat to take his children, was triggering the very thing she accused him of. Panic licked at my edges. She was winning. Then a new voice rang out, clear and bright. He is fit to rule because his first thought is not for his throne, but for his pack's future. Everyone turned. Liana, my attendant, had stood up from her seat among the retainers. Her face was pale, but set with determination. I have served in this stronghold since I was a pup. I saw the darkness descend after the Luna left. But since the heirs returned, since she came, she pointed at me, the darkness has lifted. He is not a beast. He is a father who fought through his own curse to get back to his children. The true curse was not in his blood, but in the betrayal he suffered. Another voice, a grizzled old warrior from Kaelen's personal guard, stood. I, the rogues who attacked the healer's home, bore the scent of silver and sage, silver fang scents. They were not random bandits. They were sent to clean up the Luna's mistake. A cacophony erupted, wolves shouting, arguing, pounding fists on stone. The council descended into chaos. Seraphina's beautiful face was twisted in fury. Kaelen stood rigid, the gold light in his eyes warring with a dawning, fragile hope. The moderator slammed his staff on the stone. Order. This council will adjourn for 3 hours. The parties will retire to consider the testimony. We will reconvene at Moon High to vote on the custodianship of the heirs and the status of Seraphina of the Silver Fang. As the hall erupted into movement, Seraphina shot me a look that promised swift and utter annihilation. Then she swept out, her silver fang kin closing around her. Kaelen was immediately surrounded by his commanders, their heads bent in urgent conversation. Liana found me in the dispersing crowd, her hands shaking. "I'm sorry, I had to speak." "You were brilliant," I said, squeezing her arm. "You spoke the truth they needed to hear." I looked toward the dais. Kaelen's gaze found mine through the throng. He gave a single slow nod. The vote was still to come, but the first battle, the battle for the truth, had been fought, and we had not lost. The 3-hour recess was an eternity stretched thin over a blade's edge. I was escorted not to my tower, but to a secure antechamber near the Hall of Echoes, a small, windowless room lined with stone benches. Liana stayed with me, her nervous energy filling the quiet space. The sentinel stone felt cool against my skin, its earlier warmth subdued, as if waiting. "We changed the tide," Liana whispered, pacing. I saw it in their eyes. The unaligned alphas, they were listening. "But the vote," I said, my voice hollow, "it's not about truth, it's about power. The Silver Fang clan is strong. An alliance with them, or fear of them, could sway the vote." Liana stopped, her expression grim. "You're learning our ways too quickly." The door opened, and Elias entered. His face was a storm cloud. "Elia, come with me. The king wishes to see the heirs before the reconvention." I followed him, Liana trailing behind. We moved through guarded corridors, deeper into the mountain's heart, to the royal chambers. The pups were in a fortified nursery, playing with carved wooden wolves under the watchful eyes of 2 stern she-wolves. The moment they saw me, they abandoned their toys and tumbled over, yipping happily. I knelt, gathering them close, their familiar scent and warmth a balm to my frayed nerves. Kaelen entered a moment later. He looked drained, the controlled ferocity from the council chamber replaced by a deep-seated fatigue. But when he saw the pups, a genuine smile, small and tired, touched his lips. He knelt beside me, running a large hand over Soul's head. They have no idea that the world is being reshaped just outside this door. Will it be enough? I asked, quietly, not looking at him. My testimony? Liana's words? He was silent for a long moment. It has shaken the foundation of her story. It has given the hesitant a reason to doubt. But you are right. The council votes not just for justice, but for stability. Removing me, placing the heirs with the silver fangs, it could be seen as a clean if unjust solution to years of tension. He looked at me, his gold eyes grave. If the vote goes against us, I will not abide by it. The quiet declaration held the weight of mountains. It meant civil war. It meant the stronghold under siege, the valley running with blood. "What will you do?" I breathed. "I will take my children, and you, and those loyal to me, and we will disappear. We will flee to the farthest, most forgotten corner of this earth. Let them have their cursed kingdom. I will have my family safe." He said it with such absolute conviction that I knew it was no bluff. He would burn his crown to ash for them. The thought of running, of a life forever in shadow, was terrifying, but the thought of Soul and Umbra in Seraphina's clutches was a cold, dead horror in my soul. Then we hope it does not come to that. A guard appeared at the door, bowing stiffly. "Majesty, the moderator requests your presence. The Silver Fang Alpha wishes to confer before the vote." Kaelen's expression hardened back into that of the king. He stood. "Stay here, Alara, with them. Elias, secure this wing. No one enters or leaves without my direct command." They left, the heavy door thudding shut, leaving me alone with the pups and the 2 guards. The room, though richly appointed, felt like the most luxurious prison in the world. I played with Soul and Umbra, trying to lose myself in their simple joy, but every minute stretched like tar. Perhaps an hour later, a new sound filtered through the stone, not the distant murmur of the gathering council, but something closer, a series of sharp, guttural barks of command, the sound of scuffling, a muffled cry that was abruptly cut off. The 2 she-wolf guards at the door exchanged a glance, their hands going to their weapons. "Something's wrong," one growled. The door shuddered under a heavy impact, then another. Thud. Thud. It was not a knock, it was a battering. "Get the heirs and the human to the inner sanctum," one guard barked at me, while the other braced herself against the door. The inner sanctum was a small, hidden alcove behind a tapestry depicting the first Alpha. I scooped up Soul and Umbra, their playful moods instantly shifting to fear, and scrambled into the dark space, just as the nursery door exploded inward. It was not Silver Fang warriors. These were wolves I did not recognize, their pelts a motley of colors, their eyes burning with a fanatical silver-tinged light. Mercenaries or zealots. They overwhelmed the 2 she-wolf guards at the door in a silent, efficient flurry of claws and teeth. A tall, lean wolf with a scar over one milky eye stepped over the bodies. His gaze swept the room, then locked on the tapestry. He could smell us. The human and the whelps. The false Luna wants them silenced before the vote. Bring them. They advanced. I held the squirming, terrified pups close, backing until my shoulders hit cold stone. There was no way out. The sentinel stone at my throat flared with sudden, desperate heat. As the lead mercenary reached for the tapestry, a blur of gray shot past him. Elias! He moved like vengeance itself, his sword an arc of silver light. He cut down 2 mercenaries before they could turn. The scarred leader snarled, meeting Elias's blade with his own claws. "Go, Alara," Elias gritted out, parrying a vicious swipe. "The servants' passage, behind the hearth." I looked frantically. The hearth was large, and in the flickering shadows I saw it, a narrow, almost invisible seam in the stone. I shoved at it with my free hand. It gave, revealing a pitch-black shaft smelling of damp and soot. I didn't hesitate. Clutching the pups, I plunged into the darkness. The passage was tight, a forgotten artery of the stronghold. I stumbled blindly, the pups whining in my arms. Behind me, the sounds of battle faded, replaced by the thud of my own heart and the scrabble of my feet on uneven stone. I had no idea where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. The passage began to slope upward. A faint, cold light appeared ahead. Fresh air. I pushed towards it, emerging onto a narrow, wind-swept ledge partway down the outer wall of the stronghold. The valley sprawled below, the council tents like fallen leaves. The twin moons glared down. I was exposed, trapped. A shadow detached itself from the crenellations above. A wolf landed gracefully on the ledge before me, blocking the way back inside. It was one of the mercenaries, his teeth bared in a silent grin. "End of the line, healer," he whispered. I backed up, my heels scraping the edge. A long, deadly drop yawned behind me. The pups buried their faces in my neck, trembling. The mercenary advanced, his claws gleaming. "Kaelen!" The scream was ripped from my throat, less a call for help than a raw declaration of faith. A golden streak fell from the sky. It was not a leap, it was a descent. Kaelen landed between me and the mercenary with a force that cracked the stone of the ledge. He was in his full, terrifying hybrid form, larger than any wolf, standing on two legs, muscles coiled under a shadow pelt, his face a mask of fangs and blazing golden fury. The curse was upon him, but it was focused, a weapon honed to a single point. The mercenary's confidence vanished. He tried to flee. He was too slow. Kaelen's clawed hand closed around the mercenary's throat. He did not roar, he spoke, his voice a distorted, grating echo of itself. "You threatened what is mine." He did not kill him with violence. He simply held him over the ledge and let go. The silent, falling figure was more terrifying than a scream. Then Kaelen turned. The fury in his eyes was still there, a banked inferno, but as his gaze fell on me and the pups safe and whole, it began to recede. The hybrid form blurred, shrinking, until he was just a man again, breathing heavily, his clothes torn. He stumbled forward, his hands coming up to cradle my face, and the pups pressed between us. His touch was shaking. "Ilara, are you hurt? Are they? We're safe," I choked out, tears of relief and delayed terror streaming down my face. "You came." "I will always come," he vowed, his forehead pressing against mine for a brief, electric moment. The attack was a diversion. While her mercenaries came for you, Seraphina was in the hall decrying my uncontrollable rage, claiming I was unfit. This was her final move. Then the vote. A horn sounded from deep within the stronghold, not a war horn, a long, solemn, resonant note that echoed across the mountain. The council's decision was ready. Kaelen's face set into grim lines. He took Umbra from my arms, holding his daughter close. "Come, let us hear our fate." We did not go back through the secret passages. Kaelen led me through the main gates, past stunned guards and servants, directly into the Hall of Echoes. Our entrance, with him carrying his daughter and me holding his son, both of us marked by soot and the aftermath of violence, sent a shockwave through the assembled council. Seraphina stood on the dais, her face a perfect mask of outraged innocence. It faltered for a split second when she saw us alive. The moderator stood, his aged eyes missing nothing. The tear in Kaelen's sleeve, the soot on my face, the way the pups clung to us. "The council has voted," he announced, his voice echoing. "Based on the testimony and the intervening events, the vote is thus." He unrolled a scroll. "By majority, the council finds the evidence of Seraphina of the Silver Fang's abandonment and conspiracy to be credible. Her status as Luna is hereby revoked, stripped, and cast into the void. She is named Oathbreaker and Exile." A roar of approval erupted from Kaelen's supporters. Seraphina's face went bone white, her glacial composure shattering into pure, undiluted hatred. Her Silver Fangkin looked stunned, some ashamed, others furious. The moderator raised a hand for silence. Furthermore, by unanimous decision, the custodianship of the heirs, Soul and Umbra, is affirmed to their father, Alpha Kaelen of Blackthorn Peak. Kaelen closed his eyes, a shudder of profound relief going through him. He squeezed Umbra tighter. But, the moderator continued, and the hall fell silent again, a condition is placed upon this custodianship. The council recognizes the destabilizing nature of the curse upon the Alpha. Therefore, until such a time as the curse is broken or the heirs come of age, the Alpha's rule shall be observed by a Regents' Council, comprised of one member from each major pack here assembled, to ensure the kingdom's stability. It was a compromise, a check on Kaelen's power. He had kept his children, but his throne was now shared. He opened his eyes, the gold in them flickering. He gave a single, stiff nod of acceptance. It was a price he was willing to pay. The moderator turned his ancient gaze on me. And for the human, Ilara, whose courage and truth served the cause of justice, the council grants formal recognition as a ward of the realm. She shall be under the protection of every pack here sworn, and her safety shall be considered integral to the peace. It was more than I had ever imagined. A title, a promise of safety. I stood a little straighter. The moderator slammed his staff. This council is adjourned. Let justice guide your paths. As the hall erupted into chaotic movement, celebrations, arguments, the Silver Fang contingent gathering their disgraced former Luna to leave, Kaelen turned to me. The battle was won. The pups were safe. His kingdom was diminished but whole. Yet, as Seraphina was led away, she locked her eyes on me one last time. No words were spoken, but the message was clear in her icy blue gaze. Exile was not the end. For her, it was merely a change of battlefield. The external threat was muted, but the curse still coiled in Kaelen's blood, and a vengeful enemy now lurked in the shadows beyond the border. The fight for the future was far from the over. It had simply entered a new, more treacherous phase. Victory, it turned out, was a fragile, complicated thing. The days following the council were not filled with celebration, but with the meticulous, exhausting work of building a new reality. The stronghold of thorns remained, but its atmosphere had shifted. The oppressive dread of Seraphina's shadow was gone, replaced by a wary, watchful tension, the tension of a kingdom on probation. The Regents' Council was formed, a dour, pragmatic she-wolf from the Glacier Pack, a shrewd, merchant-minded alpha from the coastal clans, a stern elder from the Plains Runners, and of course, a coldly polite representative from the Silver Fang clan, a male named Corvin, whose every word felt like a carefully sheathed blade. They took up residence in a wing of the stronghold, their presence a constant reminder that Kaelen's authority was now shared, observed, contingent. My new status as a ward of the realm was a strange kind of fame. Wolves who had previously looked through me now nodded with cautious respect, or studied me with open curiosity. I was given a new set of chambers, not in the remote tower, but in a sunlit wing closer to the royal family's quarters. They were spacious, beautiful, and felt utterly alien. Liana remained with me, a steadfast friend in the maze of courtly life. My primary purpose, the one that gave me anchor, was the pups. With Kaelen consumed with the endless meetings and negotiations of the Regents' Council, much of their daily care fell to me. I didn't mind. In the nursery, with its sun-warmed rugs and scattered toys, the world made sense. Sol was growing bold, his paws too big for his body, constantly tumbling into things. Umbra was more observant, her golden eyes missing nothing, often curling in my lap while I read or sorted herbs. Kaelen came to the nursery every evening without fail. He would shed the mantle of the negotiated king at the door, his shoulders loosening. He'd wrestle gently with Sol, or let Umbra braid feathers into his dark hair. In these moments, he was just Kaelen, and I was just Ilara. The thread between us, first spun in a forest clearing, grew stronger, woven through shared smiles over a child's antics, through quiet conversations in the firelight after the pups were asleep. One such evening, he lingered after Sol and Umbra were carried to their beds. The fire crackled, painting his profile in gold and shadow. "The coastal clan representative," he said, staring into the flames, "wants trading rights extended further into our northern timberlands. Corvin from the Silverfang suggests a renewed treaty of non-aggression, which is code for us ignoring their troop movements along the South Pass." He ran a hand over his face. "I spent 3 hours today debating the tax rate on goat's wool." "Goat's wool is important," I offered softly, grinding moonflower petals for a calming tea. He shot me a wry look. "It is, and that is the madness of it. My father fought wars over territory and honor. I am fighting a war over wool tariffs and fishing quotas, while every decision is watched by a committee. But it keeps the peace. It keeps them safe. So I will debate wool until the moon falls from the sky." He accepted the cup of tea I handed him. Our fingers brushed. That now familiar spark jumped between us, a silent, potent language. We had not spoken of the almost embrace on the ledge, or the charged moments in my chamber. It hovered in the air between us, a beautiful, dangerous secret. "Ilara," he began, his voice lower, "this life I've drawn you into, it is not what I would have chosen for you. Committees and politics and cold stone halls." I looked around the warm nursery, at the sleeping pups in the adjacent room. "It has its compensations," I offered softly. His gaze held mine, the firelight dancing in his golden eyes. "Does it?" Before I could answer, a frantic knock sounded at the nursery door. Elias entered, his expression grim. "Sire."
"A report from the Southern Scouts. A patrol is missing, 5 wolves. They were tracking strange signs near the Silverfang border." All softness vanished from Kaelen's face. The king was back. Strange signs? Not wolf, not anything natural. The earth was scorched, but with cold, and there was a symbol carved into a tree. Elias placed a piece of bark on the table. Scratched into it was a crude but unmistakable emblem, a crescent moon but fractured down the middle, dripping with what looked like frozen sap. Kaelen went very still. The air in the room chilled. "The shattered moon," he whispered, the name tasting of old dread. "What is it?" I asked, the fear in his voice chilling me more than any scout's report. "An old cult," Elias said, his voice tight, "from before the unified pacts. They worshipped not the Moon Mother, but her absence, the void between the stars. They believed in unraveling bonds, in severing fate. They were purged centuries ago." "Perished, but not forgotten," Kaelen finished, his hand closing into a fist. "Seraphina's mother was a historian of forbidden lore. It seems her daughter has been studying more than politics in her exile." He looked from the symbol to me, a new, more profound fear in his eyes. "They don't just want the throne, they want to break the world that rejected her, and they start by breaking bonds. The bond between a king and his pack, between a father and his children," his gaze pinned me, "between a savior and those she saved." The cozy peace of the nursery shattered. The war wasn't over, it had just changed shape, slithering from the political arena into the realm of something older and far more sinister. "Double the guard on the heirs," Kaelen commanded Elias, his voice like iron, "and on the ward's chambers. No one enters or leaves the inner stronghold without my personal seal." He turned to me, and for a moment the mask slipped, revealing raw vulnerability. "You are a thread in their tapestry now, Ilara, a thread of loyalty, of chosen family. They will see that as a weakness to be cut." He left with Elias, already barking orders into the hallway. I stood alone in the sudden silence, the cheerful fire now feeling like a futile defiance against a rising tide of cold, deliberate malice. The shattered moon. They didn't want to kill us, they wanted to unravel us. The stronghold became a fortress under silent siege. Trust, the newly woven fabric of Kaelen's negotiated reign, began to fray at the edges. Whispers slithered through the corridors, carried by servants who looked over their shoulders. A stable hand was found unconscious near the outer wall, mumbling about singing shadows. The symbol of the shattered moon appeared again, this time etched in frost on the window of the Glacier Pack representative's chamber. Fear is a poison. It needs no blade to wound. The Regent's Council meetings grew more fractious. Corvin, the Silver Fang representative, used the growing unease like a master sculptor uses clay. Instability plagues us, he would say, his voice smooth as oil. First a cursed king, now ancient cults haunting our borders. Perhaps a more traditional leadership is needed, a council ruling directly for the safety of all. He never mentioned Seraphina. He didn't need to. Her presence was a ghost in every word. Kaelen fought them with a cold, relentless logic, but I could see the toll it took. The golden light of the curse flickered in his eyes more frequently during these sessions, a visible sign of the strain. He was holding a wild storm inside while being asked to perform delicate diplomacy. The true attack, however, was more subtle. It was an attack on the heart. It began with Soul. He grew listless, refusing his food, his playful spark dimmed. The healers could find nothing wrong. Then, nightmares. He would wake screaming, crying about the cold woman who sang. Umbra, always sensitive, became clingy and anxious, refusing to let me out of her sight. I spent my days in the nursery, a haven that was becoming a front line. I sang to them, told them stories, held them while they trembled. But a mother's touch, a healer's herbs, they were no match for a magic that seeped through dreams. One afternoon, as I tried to coax Soul to eat some broth, Liana rushed in, her face pale. "Alara, you need to come, to the King's Solar, now." The scene in the Solar was one of contained chaos. Kaelen stood rigid before the great map table, Elias and two captains beside him. In the center of the room, a young scout, barely more than a pup himself, was shaking violently, held upright by an older warrior. The scout's eyes were wide, pupils dilated with terror. "Report," Kaelen said, his voice dangerously calm. "The missing patrol, sire. We found them, in the Blackroot Valley." He swallowed convulsively. They weren't dead, exactly. They were standing in a circle, just standing. Their eyes were open, but they were empty, like glass. And they were humming. A chill colder than the deepest winter settled in my bones. "And," Elias pressed, "around their necks," whispered the scout, "pendants made of woven hair, white hair, and brown." He looked directly at me, his face a mask of pity and fear. Human hair. The world tilted. Brown hair. My hair. Kaelen's head snapped toward me. The gold in his eyes flared so brightly it lit the dim room. Rage, hot and terrifying, radiated from him, but beneath the rage I saw a horror that mirrored my own. "A sympathy ritual," Elias growled, the words tasting of ash. "The cult, they are using a link to the ward to unmake the bonds of the pack, using her connection to you, sire, to the heirs, to the loyalty of your warriors. They turn your own strength against you. I was the thread, and they were pulling on me to unravel everything." "How?" Kaelen's voice was a scrape of stone on stone. I thought of the mercenary on the ledge, of the struggle in the nursery, a strand of hair torn free in a fight, collected from a battleground or a pillow. It would be enough for their dark magic. "It does not matter how," I said, my own voice surprising me with its steadiness. The fear was a block of ice in my chest, but clarity formed around it. "We break the link. We take away their tool." All eyes turned to me, the human, the cause. "We break the link." Corvin, who had been observing silently from the doorway, chose that moment to speak. The simplest way to break a link is to remove its source. His cold eyes rested on me. For the safety of the Alpha, the heirs, and the pack, perhaps the ward should be removed to a distant, secure location, isolated, where her connection cannot be exploited. Isolated, a polite word for a prison, a pretty cage far away where I could no longer be a danger, but also where I could no longer see Sol and Umbra's smiles or feel the steadying warmth of Kaelen's presence. Kaelen took a step toward Corvin, and the air in the room grew thin. She stays. Sire, be reasonable, Corvin pressed, a sly triumph in his gaze. He had maneuvered Kaelen into a choice between his heart and his kingdom's safety. Every moment she is here, she is a weapon they can use against you, against your children. Is your personal attachment worth that risk? It was the cruelest cut. Kaelen flinched as if struck. The golden light in his eyes writhed, a visible battle between the curse's rage and the man's torment. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the unbearable weight of the choice. I couldn't let him make it. He's right. The words fell into the silent room like stones. Kaelen stared at me, stricken. Not about isolation, I continued, holding his gaze, pouring all my certainty into my own, but about breaking the link. There is another way, a healer's way. I had read of it in my mother's old, half-forgotten grimoire, nestled among recipes for poultices. A ritual of severing. It was dangerous. It could damage the one performing it, but it was a choice, not an order. What way? Kaelen asked, his voice raw. A cleansing rite. I must go to the place where the link was strongest, where my connection to you and the pups is rooted in this land, the old riverbank, my cabin. I must sever the sympathetic threads they've attached to me there, at their point of origin. I turned to Corvin, meeting his cold gaze. It is not isolation, it is action, and it must be done by me, alone. Alone? Absolutely not, Kaelen immediately said. If you or any of the pack come with me, your presence, your bond to me, could fuel the ritual, make it worse. It must be a human act, of human will, severing a magic that preys on connection. It is the only way that does not play into their design of dividing us. The logic was sound, even to the grim-faced captains. Corvin looked displeased. His solution of simply removing me was cleaner, more final. Kaelen searched my face, looking for doubt, for fear. He saw only resolve. He saw the healer who had faced down rogues for his children. Slowly, painfully, he nodded. Elias will get you to the border, but no further, and you will have a time limit. If you are not back by moon high, he didn't finish the threat, but it hung in the air. He would come for me, consequences be damned. I will be back, I promised, to him, to myself. As I prepared to leave, gathering simple ritual tools, salt, a silver knife, a gift from Liana, a vial of water from the stronghold's sacred spring, Kaelen found me in my chambers. The pups were asleep in the next room. This is my fault, he said, his voice thick. I drew you into this world. I made you a target. I walked into this world the moment I picked up Sol under that willow, I corrected gently. I chose this, and I choose to fight for it. I touched the sentinel stone at my throat. You gave me this to speak truth. Now I must use my own truth to break a lie. He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek. It was the first intentional, gentle touch he had allowed himself since the ledge. It seared through me, a promise and a farewell. Come back to us, Alara, he whispered, his forehead leaning against mine. Then he was gone, the Alpha King returning to his war room, leaving me with the echo of his touch and the terrifying task ahead. I left the stronghold of thorns under a gray, weeping sky. Elias and 2 silent guards escorted me to the border forest. At the edge of the tree line, Elias handed me a small hooded lantern. Moon high, Alara, not a moment later. I nodded and stepped into the woods alone. The path to my old cabin was overgrown, the forest holding its breath. I was going back to the beginning, to the place where my fate had tangled with a king's curse. This time, I wasn't saving lives. I was saving the bonds that made those lives worth living. The forest remembered. It whispered with the ghost of that cold night, the phantom cries of pups echoing in the rustle of leaves. My cabin came into view, a sad silhouette against the gloomy sky. The door still hung broken, a black mouth. The garden I'd tended was a tangle of weeds and frost-killed plants. This place, once my sanctuary, now felt like a wound in the world. But it was my wound, and I was here to cleanse it. I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with the memory of violence and fear. I ignored the shattered furniture, the dark stains on the floor. I went to the hearth, the heart of the home, and knelt on the cold stones. I arranged my simple tools, a circle of pure salt, the silver knife, the vial of sacred water. I took a deep breath, centering myself not as a ward of the realm, but as Ilara, the healer, the woman who knew the language of roots and the rhythm of her own heart. I pricked my finger with the silver knife, letting a single drop of blood fall on the hearthstone. By blood shed here in protection, I call this place to witness. By the bonds forged here in compassion, I call them to my aid. I closed my eyes, not to block out the world, but to see the deeper one. I sought the threads, not with magic, but with memory and love. I pictured Soul's playful bark, the weight of him in my arms. I pictured Umbra's quiet, intelligent gaze. I felt the steadying, anchoring pull of Kaelen's presence, the golden thread that had hummed between us since the moment he'd knelt to check my wrist. And then I saw them, faint, sickly silver strands, like cobwebs spun from poison, clinging to the bright gold and warm brown of our bonds. They were anchored here, in the place where my connection to the royal family began. They pulsed with a rhythm that was wrong, a discordant, freezing hum, the same hum the scout had described. The shattered moon's magic, using my love as a conduit for their poison. I took the vial of sacred water, water from the heart of the mountain, water of unity and flow, wash away what does not belong. I sprinkled it over my spot of blood. A hiss, like water on hot iron, but cold. The silver threads shimmered, repelling the water.
They were strong, stronger than I'd anticipated. Panic fluttered in my chest. I was just a human. What was I doing facing ancient cult magic? You are the needle, Kaelen's voice echoed in my memory. You hold the tapestry together. I wasn't here to fight their magic with greater magic. I was here to assert a deeper truth. I grasped the bright, warm thread of my bond to the pups, to Kaelen. I focused not on the poison clinging to it, but on the bond itself. The feeling of Soul's fur under my hand, the sound of Umbra's sleeping breath, the way Kaelen's eyes softened when he looked at his children, the way they had softened just once when he looked at me. This is mine, I said aloud, my voice gaining strength. This bond is not a tool. It is not a weakness. It is a choice, my choice, and I choose it. I claim it. I poured my will into the claim, not as a warrior, but as a weaver. I imagined the gold and brown threads brightening, strengthening, becoming immutable. The silver parasitic strands writhed, trying to burrow deeper. They fed on doubt, on fear of connection, so I gave them none. I thought of the risk, the danger, the terrifying unknown of this world, and then I thought of the alternative, a life without them, a cold, hollow victory of mere survival. The choice was clear. I choose the bond, I declared, the words of vow in the empty cabin. I choose the family I found in the cold. I choose the king who kneels in the ashes. This connection is my strength, and you cannot have it. With a final push of pure, defiant will, I envisioned not severing the silver threads, but burning them away with the intensity of the bond they sought to corrupt. I focused all the warmth, the loyalty, the fierce, protective love I felt into that central golden thread. A soundless flash of light, warm and gold, erupted from my chest, visible only to my inner sight. It raced down the thread, scouring it clean. The silver strands sizzled, blackened, and dissolved into nothingness, their discordant hum cut off abruptly. I sagged forward, gasping, drained to the very core of my being. The ritual was done. The link was broken. Exhaustion washed over me, a deep, soul-deep weariness. I had done it, but as I sat there in the sudden, profound silence, a new sound reached me, not from within, but from without. Singing. A low, melodic, atonal humming coming from the woods around the cabin. It was beautiful and terrible, freezing the blood in my veins. It was the same humming from the scout report. I staggered to the broken doorway. The clearing was no longer empty. Figures stood at the edge of the trees, silhouetted in the dying light. 5, 10, more. They stood perfectly still, their eyes reflecting the pale sky, empty and glassy. The missing patrol. And behind them, shadows moved, figures cloaked in gray, their faces hidden. The cult hadn't just been using the link, they had been waiting. They knew I would come. The ritual was a trap, and I had walked into it, alone. The humming grew louder, a physical pressure that made my teeth ache. The entranced wolves began to shuffle forward, moving with a stiff, unnatural gait. Their purpose was clear: to take me. A living source, now cleansed, but still powerfully connected, would be an even greater prize for their rituals. I backed into the cabin, my mind racing. The silver knife was in my hand, useless against so many. The lantern. Fire. I kicked the remnants of my old wooden table towards the doorway, scooping up the still smoldering peat from my ritual circle. I blew on it, coaxing a tiny flame, and touched it to the dry, splintered wood. It caught, flaring to life, creating a weak barrier of light and heat in the doorway. The humming faltered a moment. The advancing figures paused. They feared fire, or the light of it. But the fire was small, and the wood was wet from the damp air. It wouldn't last. I looked at the silver knife, then at the encroaching shadows. Moon High was approaching. Elias would come, but would it be too late? The cultists were closing in, their humming rising to a crescendo meant to shatter thought. I'd broken their link. Now I had to survive their retaliation. I gripped the silver knife, prepared to make my final stand in the ruins of my first home, hoping the bonds I had just fought so hard to cleanse would be enough to guide my friends to me in time. The fire hissed and spat, a fragile, dying star in the maw of the gathering darkness. The humming was a wall of sound now, pressing in, clouding my mind, making it hard to think, to hope. The entranced wolves took another step, then another, their empty eyes fixed on me. Behind them, the gray-cloaked cultists watched, silent puppeteers. My grip on the silver knife was sweaty. It was a tool for rituals, not combat. A symbol against creatures of magic, perhaps, but against mind-controlled wolves, it was a toothpick against a tide. Moon High, I thought desperately. Where are you? As if in answer, a new sound tore through the oppressive humming, not a howl of rage, but a single pure clarion note of summons. It was Kaelen's voice, but amplified by something more than lungs, by will, by bond, by kingship. It echoed across the forest, shattering the cult's hypnotic drone like glass. The entranced wolves froze, twitching, a flicker of confusion in their dead eyes. Then, chaos erupted from the tree line opposite the cultists. Not a charge, but a silent, lethal flow. Elias and the 2 guards, yes, but with them were a dozen other wolves, Kaelen's personal guard, their eyes clear and burning with fury. They did not engage the entranced patrol. They flowed around them, a blur of fang and claw aimed straight at the gray-cloaked figures.
The cultists, reliant on their insidious magic, were unprepared for a direct, violent assault. The humming cut off into shouts and snarls of real pain. Silver knives like mine flashed in the gloom, but Kaelen's wolves fought with tooth and claw and short swords, breaking the cultists' formation. In the confusion, I saw him, Kaelen. He stood at the edge of the clearing, not in his hybrid form, but every inch the Alpha King. His eyes blazed with a gold light that was not the curse's madness, but a pure, focused power. He held a long, simple spear of black wood, tipped with obsidian. He was not looking at the cultists. He was looking at the entranced wolves, his own lost warriors. He took a step forward and spoke, not a shout, a command that vibrated in the earth. You are wolves of Blackthorn Peak. You know my voice. You know your names. Remember. He thrust the spear into the ground. A pulse of golden energy, clean and sharp, rippled out from the point of impact. It washed over the entranced wolves. They shuddered as one, a full-bodied convulsion. The glassy emptiness in their eyes shattered, replaced by dawning horror, confusion, and then, as they saw their king and their comrades fighting, by shame and rage. One, the patrol leader, shook his massive head, a low growl building in his throat. He turned, saw a cultist trying to flee, and lunged with a roar of betrayed fury. The spell was broken. The patrol turned their bewildered anger on their true enemies. The tide of the battle turned instantly. The cultists, now outnumbered and facing wrath from both front and rear, broke. They melted back into the forest, their gray cloaks making them ghosts among the trees. Kaelen gestured sharply, and a unit of his wolves gave chase, driving them from our territory. Silence fell again, but now it was the silence after a storm, ringing with the aftermath of violence. The freed patrol members stood panting, looking at their king, then at the ground, unable to meet his gaze. Kaelen walked toward them. He stopped before the patrol leader. He said nothing. He simply placed a hand on the wolf's bowed head, a gesture of forgiveness, of reclamation. The wolf whined softly, pressing his head against Kaelen's leg. Then Kaelen's eyes found me, still standing in the smoky doorway of the cabin. He crossed the clearing in long strides. He didn't ask if I was hurt. He just looked at me, his gaze scanning my face, seeing the exhaustion, the residual fear, the steadfastness that remained. The fierce gold in his eyes softened, but did not disappear. You broke the link, he stated. I did, and they came for you. They did. He reached out and gently took the silver knife from my numb fingers. His hand closed around mine, his warmth seeping into my cold skin. You were supposed to wait for us at the border. The ritual had to be done alone, the aftermath less so. I managed a weak smile. A real smile, small but breathtaking, touched his lips. It was a rare sight, a crack in the granite. Come, he said softly. Let's go home. The children are waiting. They felt the breaking of the spell. Sol ate 3 helpings of stew. Home. The word had never sounded so sweet or so fraught. We turned our backs on the ruined cabin, on the clearing that had been a place of both salvation and trap. As we walked, flanked by his warriors and the now loyal patrol, Kaelen spoke quietly, for my ears only. When the link broke, he said, his voice low, a sudden quiet in here. He touched his chest. The curse's constant whisper dimmed. For the first time in years, I heard only my own thoughts. He looked at me, wonder in his eyes. You didn't just break their link, Elora. You weakened the chains of my own curse. Your choice, your claim on the bond, it reminded the magic what it was meant to shield, not just what it was meant to punish. Hope, fragile and dazzling, bloomed in my chest. We walked in silence for a while, the stronghold's twisted towers appearing on the horizon. Corvin will use this, I said, finally, the practical world reasserting itself. He'll say my actions provoked an attack, that I'm a magnet for danger. Let him try, Kaelen said, and there was a new edge in his voice, not of rage, but of certainty. He stood in the council today, after you left, and demanded your immediate isolation. The Glacier Pack representative told him to sit down and be silent. The Coastal Clan Alpha asked if his secure location had good fishing. A genuine smirk touched Kaelen's mouth. You have allies, Elora, not because you are a ward, but because you are you. You faced an ancient evil with salt and willpower and saved 5 of our warriors. The pack respects strength, and they are starting to see yours. We entered the stronghold gates to a different atmosphere than the one we'd left. Word had traveled ahead. Wolves looked at me not just with curiosity, but with a new measuring respect. I was not just the human who saved the heirs. I was the human who walked into a cult's trap and walked back out, with their king and their lost brothers. In the nursery, Sol hurled himself at my legs, babbling about a bad dream that went poof. Umbra climbed into my lap, tucked her head under my chin and sighed, a sound of profound contentment. The lingering cold in my soul melted away in their warmth. Kaelen watched us, leaning against the doorway. The scene was peaceful, whole, but the cost was etched on his face and on mine. We had won a battle, exposed an enemy, and strengthened our position. But Seraphina was still out there, her ambition curdled into a fanatical hatred. The shattered moon cult was not destroyed, just scattered, and the curse, while weakened, still lived in Kaelen's blood. That night, as I lay in my new chambers, the sentinel stone cool against my skin, I realized the truth. We were not living in an aftermath, we were living in an interlude. The stronghold was no longer just a place of thorns, but a fortress we were building together, thread by painful thread. And the next attack would not be on our bonds or through dreams. It would come for the foundation itself, and we would have to be ready. The interlude of peace was a shallow one, a thin crust over a seething lake. The cult's attack had been repelled, but its poison lingered. In the stronghold of thorns, the newfound respect I'd earned was a double-edged sword. I was now undeniably part of the pack's fabric, which meant its tensions were now my own. The Regent's Council meetings grew colder. Corvin, the Silverfang representative, no longer argued with sly suggestions. He wielded a cold, precise silence, his disapproval a tangible frost in the room. The other representatives watched him and watched Kaelen with the wary air of wolves scenting a coming storm.
The focus shifted from wool tariffs to security. Kaelen pushed for mustering the border patrols, for fortifying the southern passes against not just Silverfang incursions, but the creeping threat of the shattered moon cult. Corvin countered with concerns over warmongering and draining the realm's resources for phantoms. Phantoms don't leave scouts with glassy eyes and carved symbols on trees, Kaelen had said, his voice dangerously calm. The gold in his eyes had flickered, but it was a controlled burn. The ritual and the clearing had given him a measure of control, a space between feeling and reaction. He was learning to wield his own power, curse and all. I spent my days in a new routine. Mornings with the pups, whose health and spirits had returned completely. Afternoons in the stronghold's surprisingly vast archives with Liana, who had a knack for finding forgotten scrolls. We weren't searching for military strategies, but for lore,
for anything about the shattered moon, their rituals, their weaknesses. My healer's mind sought patterns, ingredients, sympathetic connections. If their magic was a disease, there had to be a cure, or at least an antitoxin. It was in a mildewed bestiary, tucked between drawings or giant cave slugs and three-headed hawks, that I found it. A passing mention of a plant called lunastrata, or moon's ladder, a delicate silver-leafed vine that was said to bloom only under the light of the twin moons, and only in places where the veil between bonds of love, loyalty, blood was strongest. The text called it a focus for connection, a clarifier of intent. To a cult that sought to shatter bonds, such a plant would be more than a rarity. It would be an anathema, a potential weapon. "Does it still grow?" I asked Anya, the castellan, over a tense dinner in the great hall. She eyed me, her flinty gaze considering. The high alpine meadows on the eastern slopes of the Blackthorn Peak itself. It is a treacherous climb, and the plant is elusive. Few have seen it, fewer still have picked it, for it is said to wither if harvested with selfish intent. She paused. "Why do you ask, Ward?" I said, academic curiosity, which was only half a lie. Later, in the quiet of the nursery as the pups slept, I shared the discovery with Kaelen. He listened, his brow furrowed. "A flower as a weapon?" I insisted, the idea taking firmer shape. "Not a weapon, a shield. Their magic attacks bonds. This plant embodies them. If we could cultivate it here, within the stronghold walls, it might create a zone of clarity, a place where their whispers couldn't take root. It could protect the pups. It could steady you." I didn't say cure the curse, but the hope hung between us. He was silent for a long time, staring into the fire. "The eastern slopes are dangerous, avalanches, rockfalls, and they border uncertain territories. I'm not asking to go myself, though a part of me yearned for the simplicity of a herb-gathering quest. But perhaps a small, trusted team. No, the word was final. We cannot spare the wolves, and I will not risk more lives on a botanical hope. Our focus must be on tangible defenses, on steel and stone and watchful eyes. It was the right decision for a king, but it felt like a closing door. I saw the logic, but my healer's soul ached for a more fundamental solution than higher walls. The true frost came not from the mountains, but from within. A week later, a sickness began in the lower wards of the stronghold. It started with a deep, racking cough, then a fever that burned cold, leaving its victims shivering under piles of furs. It spread with alarming speed. The healers were baffled. It was no illness they knew. I went to the sick wards, ignoring the protests of Liana and the wary looks of the wolf healers. The scent was wrong, not the ripe smell of infection, but a dry, metallic cold, like frozen blood and ozone. The patient's eyes, when they could open them, held a glazed, distant look that reminded me horribly of the entranced patrol. This was no natural plague. This was magic. A slower, more subtle attack than mind control, but no less deadly. It was sapping the strength of the stronghold from the inside out, targeting the most vulnerable first. I worked alongside the wolf healers, using my knowledge of human remedies, trying to break the fevers, ease the coughs. Some responded, weakly, others worsened. In the corner, an old she-wolf who mended fishing nets coughed once, a wet, final sound, and did not draw another breath. Grief and fury warred in me. I stood, wiping my hands on a cloth, and went to find Kaelen. I found him in the map room, Corvin and the other regents with him. They were arguing about grain shipments. "It's them, the sickness. It's the shattered moon. It's an attack." Corvin's lip curled.
The human healer diagnoses a magical plague. How quaint. It is a seasonal ague, nothing more. Seasonal agues don't smell of frozen lightning, and they don't kill a robust net mender in 3 days. They are weakening us, softening us up for whatever comes next. Kaelen's gaze was fixed at me, intense. You're certain? As certain as I was about the link in the cabin, the same wrongness is in the air. The Glacier Pack representative, a practical female named Yolva, frowned well before speaking. If it is an attack, it is a cunning one. We cannot fight a sickness with claws. But we can fight its source, Kaelen said, his voice dropping into that low, dangerous register. He looked at Corvin, his Neum ice. Your clan's lands border the suspected regions where this cult festers. What do you know? Corvin drew himself up. I know that accusations without proof are the last resort of failing leadership. My clan is not responsible for your stronghold's poor ventilation and cramped quarters. The tension in the room spiked. Kaelen took a step toward Corvin, and for a moment I thought he would forget the council, the regents, everything. The gold flashed violently in his eyes. Then a young page burst into the room, gasping, "Sire, the eastern watchtower, signal fires!" We rushed to the battlements. On the highest peak to the east, a spire of orange flame and black smoke coiled into the dusk sky. One fire, then a moment later, a second, farther south. 2 fires, the signal for a coordinated attack from multiple vectors. Kaelen's face was a mask of grim acceptance. The interlude was over. They've been distracting us with sickness while they moved into position, he said, his voice carrying to the captains now gathering behind him. Elias, sound the general alarm. Man the walls. Yolva, ready your glacier warriors for the northern approach. Coastal clan, the southern pass is yours. He turned to Corvin, his expression ice. Your Silverfang warriors will reinforce the inner gates under the command of my beta. It was a direct order and a profound insult, placing his kin under another's command. Corvin's face turned to stone, but he gave a stiff nod. The time for politics was past. As the stronghold erupted into organized chaos, the clang of armor, the rallying howls, the drumming of paws on stone, Kaelen pulled me aside, his hand firm on my arm. Get to the nursery, take Liana, bar the door, do not leave no matter what you hear. His eyes bored into mine, all pretense of the negotiated king gone. This was the protector, the storm. This is the real assault, Ilara. They are coming for the heart, for the heirs, and for you. The Lunastrata, I whispered desperately. If we had it, it might... There is no time for flowers, he said, but his grip on my arm gentled for a moment. Your strength is here, in this stone, with them. Keep them safe. That is the shield I need most. He released me and turned, his cloak swirling as he strode toward the rising storm, his orders ringing against the ancient stones. I stood for a second, watching the Alpha King walk to meet his war, then turned and ran towards the nursery, towards the 2 little hearts that were the reason for all of it. The frost had reached the foundation. Now we would see if it would hold. The siege did not begin with a roar, but with a creeping, silent wrongness. From the battlements, I later learned, the enemy did not appear as an army. They emerged from the forest mist like ghosts, figures in gray, their movements synchronized and soundless. They carried no siege engines, bore no bright banners. They simply surrounded the stronghold of thorns, standing just outside bowshot, a silent, staring ring of doom. Then they began to hum. It was the same humming from the clearing, but multiplied 100-fold. It seeped through the very stone of the fortress, a low-frequency vibration that made teeth ache and thoughts scatter. It was not meant to break down walls, it was meant to break down wills. Inside, the sickness worsened, the healer's wards overflowed, the healthy wolves grew irritable, snapping at each other, shadows of doubt flickering in their eyes. The Regent's Council, meant to be a bastion of stability, fractured. The coastal clan representative argued for a negotiated surrender, his mercantile mind seeing only inevitable loss. Ylva of the Glacier Pack stood firm with Kaelen, but her warriors were few. And Corvin was a statue of cold calculation. He did not argue, he simply watched. I was in the fortified nursery with Lyanna, Sol, and Umbra. We had blocked the chimney, stuffed cloth under the door, but the humming found its way in, a persistent psychic drone. Sol covered his ears, whimpering. Umbra pressed her face into my side, trembling. Lyanna paced, her knuckles white on the hilt of a short sword. "They're trying to unmake us from the inside," I said, holding the pups close. "They'll turn us against each other until the gates open themselves." As if to prove my point, a shout, then a clash of steel echoed from the courtyard below. Not the sound of repelling invaders, but of internal strife. The poison was working. I thought of the Lunastrata, a clarifier of intent, a focus for bonds. What we needed now was not more strength, but clearer sight, to remember who we were fighting for. "Lyanna, I need to get to the roof, the highest point of the stronghold." She stared at me as if I'd gone mad. "The king said not to leave." "The king is fighting a war on two fronts, outside the walls and inside our hearts. I have an idea for the second front. I need to be under the open sky." She saw the resolve in my face, the same resolve that had faced down rogues and cultists. She cursed softly, then nodded. "The old bell tower, it has an outer walkway, but it's exposed. It will have to do." We moved quickly, bundling the protesting pups in slings against our chests. We slipped into the deserted corridors, the humming of physical pressure around us. We passed a pair of guards who glared at each other with suspicion, not watching the halls. The stronghold was coming undone. The bell tower was a narrow, dizzying climb up crumbling stairs. We emerged onto a small, wind-swept walkway high above the world. The twin moons were rising, one full and silver, the other a waning blue sliver. Below, the ring of gray-cloaked figures was visible, their heads tilted up, their humming a visible distortion in the moonlit air. And further out, at the tree line, I saw the glint of Silver Fang armor, waiting. My heart sank. Corvin's betrayal was now a tangible force on the field. I had no Lunastrata, but I had its principle, a focus for connection. I had something better than a flower. I had the source. I handed Umbra to Lyanna. "Hold them, keep them back." I stepped to the very edge of the parapet, the wind whipping my hair and cloak. I felt terrifyingly exposed. I closed my eyes, ignoring the humming that threatened to liquefy my bones. I reached not for magic, but for memory, for truth. I thought of the stronghold not as stone, but as a living thing, built on the bonds of all who lived within. I thought of the net mender who had died, of the cooks in the kitchens, the guards on the walls, the mothers in the nurseries. I thought of Lyanna's loyalty, of Elias's steadfastness, of Ylva's stubborn courage. I thought of Kaelen, not the king, but the man. The weight in his eyes, the gentleness of his hands with his children, the searing touch of his forehead against mine, the thread between us, now clean and strong, hummed in my chest, a counterpoint to the discord below. I opened my eyes and raised my voice. I did not shout. I spoke with every ounce of conviction, of love, of fierce protective belonging I felt for this broken, beautiful, cursed family I had chosen. "You are Bluke of Blackthorn Peak." My voice, carried by the wind and a desperate hope, rang out over the hypnotic drone. "You are not alone. You are bound to each other, by pack, by oath, by the cubs sleeping in your nurseries and the elders by your fires." The humming below stuttered. Some of the gray figures looked up, their chant disrupted. "Look at the ones beside you," I cried, pouring my soul into the words, making myself a conduit for the bond Kaelen had spoken of.
They are not your enemy. The enemy is the cold that tells you to doubt, the silence that tells you to fear. Remember your warmth. Remember your strength. Remember why you fight. I grasped the sentinel stone at my throat. It grew warm, then hot, its gentle pulse amplifying into a beacon. I wasn't just speaking, I was projecting, pushing out the feeling of Sol's playful nip, of Umbra's trusting sigh, of Kaelen's whispered, "Come back to us." I pushed out the memory of shared meals in the Great Hall, of laughter in the training yards, of a kingdom not of thorns, but of threads painfully woven together.
On the walls below, a wolf who had been raising his blade against a comrade lowered it slowly, confusion clearing from his eyes. A healer stopped her frantic work to look up, a sudden calm settling over her. The internal clash of steel faltered, then ceased. Down in the courtyard, Kaelen, who had been trying to rally his fracturing troops, felt it. He looked up at the tower, at my small, defiant figure silhouetted against the moons. I saw his golden eyes blaze, not with curse-fueled rage, but with a triumphant, awestruck fire. He raised his spear and his howl tore through the night, not a howl of war, but of unity, of reclamation. It was answered, one by one, then by dozens, then by hundreds, from every wolf on the walls whose heart had just remembered its true beat. The psychic siege was broken. The gray-cloaked cultists recoiled as one, their harmonious hum shattering into discordant shrieks. Their magic, which fed on disunity, withered in the face of reforged resolve. Then Kaelen gave the order. The gates did not open to surrender. They opened to release a tide of wrath. The wolves of Blackthorn Peak, their minds their own once more, poured out with a fury born of violated peace. They fell upon the stunned cultists. It was not a battle, it was an eradication. From the tree line, the Silver Fang forces, who had been waiting to mop up or claim the spoils of a fallen stronghold, watched in stunned silence. Corvin, at their head, saw his careful plot of betrayal and opportunism dissolve. He saw not a divided kingdom ripe for the taking, but a united one, awakened and furious. He met Kaelen's gaze across the bloodied field. Kaelen pointed his spear not at the fleeing cultists, but directly at Corvin, a silent promise, a debt to be settled. Corvin did not give the order to charge. He turned his horse and, with his warriors, melted back into the forest, towards his own clan lands, his ambitions in ashes. I sank to my knees on the bell tower walkway, utterly spent, the sentinel stone cooling against my skin. Liana was beside me, tears streaming down her face, hugging the pups who were now curiously peering over the edge. We had held not just the stone, but the soul of the place. The foundation, though tested by frost, had proven to be not stone alone, but something stronger, the will of those who called it home. The dawn after the siege was a quiet, bloody affair. The cultists were gone, destroyed or scattered to the winds. The stronghold stood, scarred but unbroken. The sickness, its psychic anchor removed, began to recede, leaving weakness and grief, but not death, in its wake. In the great hall, lit by the cold morning light filtering through high windows, Kaelen faced the remnants of the Regent's Council. The coastal clan representative was pale and contrite. Yulva of the Glacier Pack stood with her arms crossed, a satisfied gleam in her eye. Corvin's seat was empty, a void that spoke louder than any accusation. "The Silver Fang clan has broken the covenant," Kaelen announced, his voice echoing in the hushed hall. "By conspiring with a forbidden cult and moving against a sister pack, they are declared rogue. Any treaty with them is null. Their representative is banished, his life forfeit should he return." There were no objections. The evidence of betrayal was written in the ashes of the cultists and the retreating backs of Silver Fang armor. Furthermore, Kaelen continued, his gaze sweeping the room, the Regent's Council, in its current form, has failed its primary purpose, to ensure stability. It became a tool for division, nearly costing us all. As of now, the Council is dissolved.
A murmur of shock went up, but it was muted. They had seen their own failure. A new council will be formed, not of alphas watching a king, but of advisors serving the kingdom. It will include healers, farmers, warriors, and elders. It will include a voice for the borderlands. His eyes found me, standing at the back of the hall with Liana. It will include a human who understands the strength of bonds better than any wolf I know. My breath caught. This was not the cautious, negotiated king. This was a ruler who had reclaimed his authority not through fear, but through proven strength and the unwavering loyalty he had inspired. He was reshaping the kingdom, not back to what it was, but into something new. In the days that followed, the stronghold's energy shifted from survival to rebuilding. The sense of unity forged in the siege held. Wolves who had eyed each other with suspicion now worked side by side to clear debris, tend the wounded, and reinforce the gates. Kaelen was different. The constant simmering tension of the curse was quieter, a distant thunder rather than a perpetual storm. The victory had not broken it. I knew the golden light still lived in his eyes, but it had given him a profound leverage over it. He had faced the ultimate test of his bonds and found them stronger than the curse's intent to isolate him. He found me one afternoon in the still room, where I was helping sort what remained of the healing herbs. The pups were with Liana in the sun-drenched inner courtyard. "The scouts have returned from the eastern slopes," he said, leaning against the doorframe. My hands stilled. And they found it, Lunastrata, a small patch blooming in a sheltered crevasse just below the snow line. He held out his hand. On his palm lay a small, carefully folded leaf of oiled cloth. I opened it. Inside lay a single, perfect blossom. Its petals were the color of moonlight on snow, with delicate veins of shimmering gold. It seemed to hold light within itself. The air around it felt clearer, sharper. "It's beautiful," I breathed. The scout said it did not wither when he picked it. He said he thought of his mate and his new pup back in the stronghold as he did so. Kaelen's gaze was intent on me. "You were right. It is a flower of intent, of connection." Hope, bright and fierce, bloomed in my chest. "We can cultivate it, here, in a protected garden. It won't be a shield against armies, but—" Kaelen finished for me. "But it will be a reminder, a living reminder of what we fight for, and perhaps a balm." He didn't specify for what, but we both knew, for the lingering chill of the curse, for the memory of betrayal, for wounded souls. He took the blossom from me and tucked it gently behind my ear. His fingers lingered for a moment against my hair. "A crown of moonlight," he murmured, his voice soft. "It suits you more than any golden circlet ever could." The touch, the words, sent a cascade of warmth through me. The thread between us pulled taut, sweet and painful. "Kaelen," I began, but the words stuck in my throat. There was so much unsaid. He smiled. A real, unshadowed smile that transformed his face. "There will be time, Ilara. For the first time in a very long while, I believe there will be time." He looked toward the courtyard, where the sound of the pups' laughter drifted in. "The immediate threats are broken. The kingdom has a new shape. And I have a future to build. With my children," his golden eyes held mine. "With those who chose to stand with me." He didn't say more. He didn't need to. The promise was in the air, in the fragile blossom behind my ear, in the quiet strength of the stronghold around us. The war for survival was over. Now began the slower, more delicate work of building a life from the ashes of ambition and the seeds of a flower found on a mountainside. We planted the Lunastrata in the heart of the stronghold, in a small, walled courtyard that caught the sun by day and the twin moons by night. It had once been a forgotten place of weeds and broken statues. Now it became a project, a symbol. I worked the earth myself, with Liana and a few curious pups, both wolf and human children from the stronghold, as helpers. Kaelen often joined us after his duties, rolling up the sleeves of his simple tunic, his kingly hands learning the feel of rich soil.
It was in these hours, with dirt under our nails and the pups chasing beetles between the rows, that he was most at peace. The golden light in his eyes was a gentle glow, like captured sunlight, not a warning flare. The blossom we'd brought down from the mountain was not planted. We pressed it in a book of lore, a treasure. From its stem, using methods from my mother's grimoire and the cautious advice of the oldest wolf healers, we nurtured cuttings. It was slow, delicate work. The plant was as sensitive as the bonds it represented. It thrived not on skill alone, but on the intent of the gardeners. We spoke of good things as we worked, of Soul's first wobbly shift into a tiny golden-furred wolf pup, of Umbra's growing talent from mimicking the intricate patterns of frost on the windows with a piece of charcoal. We spoke of the new advisory council's first meetings, which were frustrating, loud, and wonderfully alive. We spoke of the future, of trade routes reopening, of festivals to celebrate the victory, of a kingdom that looked outward, not in fear, but in curiosity. We rarely spoke of the past, of Seraphina, of the curse. They were shadows we were determined to outgrow. The Lunastrata took root. Tiny silver leaves unfurled, and one night, under the light of the full silver moon and the waxing blue one, the first new blossom opened. It was smaller than the original, but its light was as pure. A soft, clarifying scent, like cold water and night-blooming jasmine, filled the courtyard. The effect was subtle, but real. The lingering cough from the magical sickness vanished entirely from those who spent time near the garden. Nightmares became less frequent. The general mood of the stronghold, once so heavy with dread and suspicion, lightened. It became a place not just of safety, but of potential. One evening, as the blue moon rose, I found Kaelen alone in the garden. He was sitting on a rough stone bench watching the Lunastrata vines shimmer. In his hands, he held something, a small wooden carving of a wolf and a human figure standing together, a child at their feet. It was rough, made by an untrained hand, but the care in it was evident. The pups asked me what a family looked like, he said quietly, without turning. I found myself carving this. I sat beside him. The moonlight on the silver leaves cast dappled patterns on his face. It's beautiful. It's the truth, he said, finally looking at me. The curse light in his eyes was absent. For the first time, I saw only his own deep, warm gold gaze, clear and unclouded. The curse. It's not gone. I can feel it, like an old scar, a memory of pain. But its voice, it's silent. It has nothing to say to this. He gestured to the carving, then to the garden, then to me. The bonds it sought to punish have become my armor, my salvation. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was calloused, warm, real. Ilara, I have spent my life ruled by a fate I did not choose, first by a crown, then by a curse. You walked into my forest and gave me a choice. You chose my children. You chose to stand. You chose to fight for a future that had nothing to do with you. He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent a tremor through my entire being. Now I am making a choice. My choice. I choose you. Not as a ward or a witness or a healer. I choose you as my partner, as the other half of this carved truth. If you will have me, if you will have this complicated, mended, imperfect life with a king who is still learning how to be a man. Tears blurred my vision. The thread between us wasn't humming now, it was singing, a clear, bright note of perfect alignment. I thought of the cold night under the willow, of the terror and the hope. I thought of every fear faced, every bond defended, every quiet moment of understanding in a sunlit nursery. I chose you the moment I didn't run from your golden eyes, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I chose this life the moment I named your children. There is no if, there is only yes, always yes. He pulled me into his arms then, and he kissed me. It was not a kiss of desperate passion forged in battle, but of profound, aching certainty. It tasted of moonlight and earth, of promises kept and a future blooming. It was a sealing of the bond we had been weaving since the beginning, thread by golden thread. When we parted, foreheads resting together, the world had changed. The stronghold was no longer just a refuge or a fortress. It was a home, our home. Soul's voice, loud and excited, shattered the moment. "Papa, Ilara, come see, Umbra can make the moonflower glow." We laughed, a shared, joyful sound, and rose together, hand in hand, to go see the magic our love had helped grow. Years are kind to a kingdom at peace. They are gentle with gardens, and they soften the hard edges of stone and memory. The stronghold of thorns, in time, earned a new name among the people, the Keep of the Gleaming Thread. The outer walls remained imposing, a necessity in a world still wild, but within it had become a place of vibrant life. The garden of moonlight flourished, its silver vines climbing the inner courtyard walls, blooming in a cascade of luminous flowers every cycle of the twin moons. It became a place of pilgrimage for newly sworn mates, for healers seeking clarity, for anyone whose heart felt tangled. The Lunastrada did not break curses or solve problems, but it helped hearts see their own truths clearly. And in clarity, there is strength.
Kaelen's rule was firm but just, guided by the diverse voices of his new council. The betrayal of the Silverfangs had left a scar, but under a new, chastened alpha who repudiated Seraphina's path, a cautious peace was eventually brokered. It would take generations to rebuild trust, but the first steps were taken not with treaties of fear, but with trade in timber and shared patrols against the remnants of the Shattered Moon cult, who now plagued all packs as bandits and fanatics, their grand design in ruins. And in the royal chambers, life unfolded in a tapestry of simple, profound moments. I stood on the same bell tower walkway, but now the view held no terror. Below, in the training yards, a young woman with sleek black hair and serious golden eyes moved through combat forms with a fluid grace that belied her slender frame. Umbra, at 15, was a diplomat at heart, but had insisted on learning to defend what she loved. Her brother, Sol, a broad-shouldered youth with his father's presence and his mother's easy smile, was laughing as he tried and failed to best Elias in a wrestling hold. The old beta grumbled, but his eyes were bright with pride. A strong, warm arm slid around my waist, and a chin rested on my shoulder. Kaelen. The scent of pine and parchment and home enveloped me. The golden light in his eyes was gone, replaced by a deep, contented warmth. The curse was a memory, a faint scar on his soul that only served to remind us of what we had overcome. "They grow too fast," he murmured, watching our children. "They grow strong," I corrected, leaning back into his embrace. "Strong and kind, just like their father." He hummed a low, happy sound. Their mother had something to do with that. He turned me gently to face him. Time had touched him, a thread of silver at his temple, a new line by his eye when he smiled. But he was more handsome to me than ever, for every line was etched by laughter, by worry overcome, by love lived deeply. The emissary from the coastal clans brought a question today. He asked if the stories were true about the human healer who tamed the cursed king with a handful of herbs and a stubborn heart. I raised an eyebrow. And what did the king say? The king said, his eyes soft, that the stories have it backwards. It was the cursed king who was saved, tamed not by force, but with an offer of a choice he never thought he had, and that he spends every day of his life grateful that she chose to walk out of her forest and into his storm. He kissed me then, as he had 1,000 times before, and each time felt like the first, a promise renewed. Later, we walked in the garden of moonlight. Sol and Umbra joined us, their youthful energy calming into the comfortable quiet of family. Under the shimmering vines, Kaelen presented our children with small carved boxes.
Inside Sol's was a river stone, smooth and gray, the first thing he'd clutched in his tiny human hand after his first shift. Inside Umbra's was a feather from the first hawk she'd ever drawn with stunning accuracy. "Tokens of your beginnings," Kaelen said, his voice thick, "to remind you that great things often have simple, humble starts, and that your worth is not in what you inherit, but in what you build." I added my own gifts. For Sol, a pouch of seeds from the hardiest herbs in my garden. For Umbra, a blank book of the finest parchment. "Tools," I said, "for a healer of land and a chronicler of hearts. The kingdom will need both." We sat together as the twin moons rose, their light setting the lunastrata ablaze with silver and blue fire. The kingdom was secure. The threats were shadows on distant borders. The curse was a tale told to wide-eyed pups by the fire. I looked at my family, at the fierce, loyal daughter, the strong, compassionate son, and the kings whose heart was finally fully his own. The thread that had begun as a fragile pole in a cold forest was now a cable of unbreakable gold, woven through all of us, binding us to each other and to this place we had saved and been saved by. Kaelen's hand found mine, his thumb stroking my palm. "What are you thinking, my love?" he asked. I gazed at the moons, at the flowers, at the faces of our future. "I'm thinking," I said, a smile blooming on my face as boundless as the garden around us, "that the best stories don't end with happily ever after. They begin there." And in the keep of the gleaming thread, under the watchful light of the twin moons, our story, woven from sacrifice, choice, and an unyielding love that had defied both curses and kings, settled into its beautiful, unending beginning.